FEMA coffin camps, for the people that are not, that are not complying with what the mandates want.
You mean the places where they're having everybody wonderfully singing Kumbaya, roasting marshmallows, and having s'mores?
Exactly.
Those types of camps. We're talking about those camps, right?
I wish we were.
I mean, at this rate, the JAB is probably going to end up being an Olympic sport in a couple of years. Who knows?
and then you had the Australian health minister clearly use the term New World Order in a presser of all places. I mean, we've only been talking about that for I don't know how long.
Shoot,
right?
God, that's been since the 90s and MTV and all that fun stuff, right?
Jen Psaki accidentally called it the pandemic, so
that's right. I saw that.
I heard about that. Yeah.
So I'm saying the quiet parts out loud now. I mean, they just need to keep it up.
At this point, it's almost too much of a coincidence for being a Freudian slip. It's too obvious.
It's how they were explaining away on the internet about this, because people were looking up, New World Order like crazy. Right. And they were literally explaining away about how it is not that big a deal what you think it is. So I don't know how much of the crowd they quailed about this. I have no idea.
Well, it's kind of funny because when you do, it's actually a very good time to talk about that, especially with what's happening with the events of tomorrow, marking the 20 years.
Yeah, true.
And how that really was the
two steel popsicle sticks. Yes, I'm aware.
The controlled demolition.
Mm-hmm.
But but before we go to Australia, just remember that this is the day that we were told that there was $10 trillion missing from the Treasury.
Right.
Where did all that money go?
They lost it. I mean, they lost it. Yeah, I mean, you can lose 10 trillion very easily. We all do it from time to time.
Wasn't all the records also in the Pentagon where it happened to strike?
Right.
Isn't that supposed to be about the Nasara, Jassara, like all that stuff, like everything that would have done all the indictments? Basically, all of that.
Mm-hmm, that was going to. So that's where we're going to be talking. If we talk about Nasara in its modern incarnation, a lot of it actually was going to happen on the September 11th, 2001, particularly when it comes to Building 7 and how it actually had vaults underneath and subterranean vaults that had gold in there. And it was going to be that, and that gold was going to be used to redistribute and rebalance the economy. But
wow, that's interesting. I wonder, where all the information is coming from on that. Interesting. I'm always fascinated with your tidbits there, Alex. That's really cool.
If you want to wait some other time, we can go into it a little bit more in depth because that's a very interesting story.
That is really cool.
I thought some of the money was also diverted to SSP as well.
I can't confirm nor deny that information.
Right.
As much as the next bureaucrat could.
Right.
But how about let's go into the land down under, and we're not talking about the song.
The land down under.
Or the body part.
As fun as that is.
We have these. So if you guys remember, land down under, Australia, New Zealand, our Aussies, our Kiwis, we love them.
Right.
On all the things that they've done, and it's really interesting how their governments have gone completely Orwellian in the span of less than a year.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
They're making camps where they're going to be singing kumbayas, roasting marshmallows, as I said before. Nothing to see here. Nothing that would not be out of a Leslie Nielsen Naked Gun movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like they have billboards outside saying "Welcome to this camp," which they actually do, and that's actually not a joke. They actually have a sign out there, and their press is even talking about these wonderful camps and how fantastic they are, making everybody healthy and well, and good for all people.
I mean, 5 years ago, all they had to worry about kicking their butt were the roos. Now it's the roos and their government. So, I mean,
Get a wallaby and a roo.
it's like a 1-2 jab.
Yeah.
So let's have context here with this, right? Right now, these are called quarantine camps. Okay. Now, 2 years ago, if you were to mention this on social media, you'd be banned.
Yeah.
And now these camps are not only a pipe dream of the cabal, but this is like full on going to be implemented within the next few months.
And I definitely want to say something on this because I have had a death threat in 2007 for talking about this with Agenda 21 and the FEMA camps, because I actually had pictures in a camera that was stolen from me. And it was during one of my moves, which I'm just like, I don't even know where in the crap. But I had pictures of the coffins. I had pictures of rail cars that had shackles that kind of came down kind of like a cot that you could basically lock people down. And on the one far end of each of the trains was a military style guillotine. And in Camp Crowder, they have a gas chamber that's similar to in Germany, the Auschwitz. I'm kind of breaking that word up because of censoring. But it is a German word. It's if you actually do, like I would suggest going to DuckDuckGo because Google is highly censored, and look up some of that stuff. Agenda 21, the Georgia Guidestones, we've talked about that. And Codex Alimentarius is one that I haven't spoken about in a while, but I've briefly mentioned it. Is basically flipping things around. So things that are good for us are being banned and things that are bad for us are being pushed. That was all started in 1997. When I joined Facebook in 2007, I started talking about a lot of it. I was mentioning a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. And that's really good for starters if you're wanting to kind of research where the Federal Reserve came, the UCC, or the Universal Commercial Code. Black's Law is mentioned in some of it. That's just kind of the conspiracy side with the secret societies. So I don't know who made the call, but when I was basically posting about things like that and was talking about these camps, that's when I got an actual phone call. And it was a man's voice, like it was changed slightly, like it was garbled up. And I didn't have a cell phone at the time. It was on my landline. And I lived probably about 3 or 4 miles from where I live right now. And right now I'm right across from the FBI in Pocatello. But yeah, it was a man. And he was just like, you need to stop posting what you're posting on Facebook, or people will get hurt that you love and it could come to you too. And so, that's not the first time that I've had threats for talking about things like this. And I've actually had attempts on my life this past year. I've had 3 attempts. And so, I'm not going to go into details. It's not a fun thing being targeted. But, anybody that's listening to this, think about, the things that we're talking about. Why in the world would somebody want to come? I'm just a single mom in Pocatello, Idaho, bumfuck Idaho. I've got teenagers just talking about stuff on the internet. Why are people making death threats? The things we talk about when we say follow the money, write down some notes, take note on some of the names being said. Sorry, there's a storm started. I might walk in pretty soon because there's some lightning. But, think about what's being said, because why are people being targeted over talking about this? Why are people being banned on social media? We're not a threat. I'm just a mom sharing what I've studied, what I've researched. So anyway, Alex Bloom, I would love to hear you elaborate a little bit more on the camps and everything.
So I think the biggest thing is just that right now it always starts small, right? What did they say at the beginning? They said 14 or 15 days or whatever it was to flatten the curve. And as soon as they get a little bit of power and control, they never give it up, ever. So you can't give them an inch. And so in Australia, with these camps that are being enacted, sure, right now there's a cover story of you go with other infected folks and get better. Show me the logic of that. And like you can't get reinfected or get different strains or variants or whatnot. I mean, come on. And that you think it's going to stop there? Do you think that's the only group of people that will be sent to these types of camps? You know, do some research on the history. Look at the NAZI party and what happened back then. They were mandating the same jab, you know. And when you look at the aerial shots of these camps, it looks pretty spookily familiar from what we saw, 80 years ago. So that's one thing going in Australia. Okay. Now let's keep context. There's more, unfortunately. Then on top of that, they are starting to implement social credit scores for social media. So think about that. If you say certain things that are defined as hate speech or, out of alignment with what the powers that be want you to think, you lose credit scores, just like in China. And of course, people start off at the surface and they say, oh, well, we don't like trolls either. So, it's probably good that they don't say hateful, mean things. But what's more important is beyond the surface, which is who is defining what is okay and not okay. And how do we know that the goalpost doesn't get moved? It's very unsettling to see in this first world country this going on. And then the third and final piece is that the truckers are revolting in Australia. And so food is not being shipped to the grocery stores. So there's video of all these people in the grocery store trying to get food and the shelves are empty. Hello, that's Soviet satellite countries right there. So, I showed my parents this past week, all these different things going on in Australia. And I said, now, several years ago, when I said this, people thought I was way wacko, like total outlier. And now this is on mainstream media. This is already being implemented. And so part of me wants to say, haha, I proved you wrong. But at the same time, you're like, I don't want to be proved correct.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I've been told I was
I would
crazy
love to be wrong on this
about
stuff.
Same stuff, told I was crazy. And I wish this was just a story. I wish. I mean, the things that I've witnessed with my own freaking eyes. And when I had a military ID, it's just beyond sick. And at times, because I've worked for many years, at least 20, traveling back and forth from Idaho to Salt Lake to Las Vegas to Los Angeles for jobs because I'm a gig worker. And so many times at night when I'm traveling, there's trains full of like military vehicles and tanks and all of these things. Why are these being shipped all over the place? And it was going on really heavily in 2017, 2018, 2019. So, you move everything around closer to these camps, people, I know we're talking about Australia, but shit, we got this stuff in our own country.
Yep.
This has been going on for years and years. And I don't trust FEMA any further than I could even say the name rather than spell it. I mean, I don't feel good about it.
Well, talking about FEMA, they recently, as you guys may have remembered, we had those tropical storms hit the Northeast. We had Tropical Storm Henri and Tropical Storm Ida. And every single county in New Jersey is now under a FEMA emergency disaster declaration. Every single county. Which is like, the way the press is saying, oh, that's wonderful. Now we can get all the help we could possibly need. Now you're under the control of the federal government. Now you're under the control of these things, and they can do whatever they want.
Makes me wonder how much HARP was involved in stirring up the weather.
That's the funny thing.
The word help is relative, though. I mean, who are they helping, themselves or us? I mean, every time we hear the word help, 90% of the time it's not helping us, it's helping them.
What was it that Ronald Reagan said? I think it was the 7 deadliest words in the English language is I'm from the government, I'm here to help.
Yeah. That's the words that you should have a problem with.
But I just found it also kind of interesting because you were talking about that particular camp, but now we're also talking about the thing that came after, which is Nuremberg. You know, we're talking about all these. It's almost as if the last 80 years never happened, and that we were just blissfully unaware of everything that was happening. And all of a sudden now it's like, hello, we're back. It never stopped.
It was actually on a show the other day that was talking about 9/11 on mainstream, that they were showing, you know, how the little plane story going on. But yeah, they're talking about this. It's just amazing how much slips through. Like I'm talking about, or like we were talking about earlier, how they're starting to just allow little things now because they know we know. It's almost like they're or not really taunting, but it's like, you know, nah, we know, you know.
I don't. You know what? It's funny. Is that I almost look at it as almost the opposite of taunting. It's one of those things where when you're like, oh, I can do it, I'm doing it, but it's almost like a desperation. Like they're saying, oh, they're acting bigger than they actually are.
Yeah, I mean, they know. They know that I mean, like Amaria said, they know that we know, especially that they're lying. We know that they're lying. They know that we know, but they keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's almost like the inglorious indignation of the
right.
They're just doing it because that's the only thing they know. They only know how to do it this way. And if they
it's
don't
funny
do it
funny how they said that the reason Guantanamo Bay was built out was for catching the terrorists, and that's what they were talking about on the mainstream. But yeah, I'm still following the idea of the indictments personally.
Well, they're still doing a lot of trials and convictions and everything, and sentencing and everything. But you know, they're very desperate when they put out that they want, you know, Guantanamo and other prisons and whatnot. They want them shut down. Well, of course, when you're in big trouble, you would love for lobby them to be shut down. I mean, you know where you're going. So I mean, but we do know the playbook. We do know the bad guys' playbook. It's been done before. They're tearing down statues. They're doing all kinds of things to try to erase as much as history possible so we don't have a point of reference. And they know that we understand this. They're doing the same playbook they did 80 years ago, 90 years ago, whatever. The same playbook that just, you know, it's a slightly different fabric, but same costume, you know? So, and do we have to take a look at history? And believe it or not, this is what's interesting. Not only they're repeating history, they're doing it in exact same order. They didn't change the order of it. They didn't change the algorithm of it, really. It's exact same order, step by step. You basically could do a checklist.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
which should make this even more obvious. That's the thing.
Almost could set your watch with it, if not your calendar. Almost. You know?
Now,
I mean, they're even making a lot of things convenient, like the poke. The new thing right now is that they managed to merge the poke along with the flu shot. They said you can take those two together now. How convenient.
That's bad enough with one. I don't want all that in my body.
Yeah. I know. Can you say Android?
You can always have it. You can always have it. You can never take away.
7 of 9.
Exactly.
Oh shoot.
Well, and the phrase that they have on Star Trek actually means something. When they say resistance is futile, guess what attitude they have now?
Yeah, they're still having
resistance is futile.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know, Spielman, I mean, you're talking about how much it aggravates you that they are moving the goalpost constantly. You know how they just say it's just a poke and just,
Oh yeah.
wanna talk about that?
I think Bloom was actually just touching on that earlier. You know, the whole it's 2 weeks to stop the spread. Then it was until we can. What was the next one? The next one was until we have to flatten the curve. That was the next one. They said we got to flatten the curve, and then it was we need people to we need people to we need 30% threshold, and then they were like we need 70% threshold, and I was like we need to just get everybody done because they've never given a reason why exactly want that done. But even though now what up are we now? Move, Dow, whatever variant now, they're saying that doesn't even work anymore. So why in the world are you doing it while at the same time the variant that we have doesn't even work? It's counterintuitive. Yeah. There's no reason to do that. Nope. You could have destroyed that like 2 months, like a month ago with Delta. Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe Biden was onto something. I'm being sarcastic because I remember him wearing the face diaper while he was on Zoom with the world leaders back several months ago. And now they want you to take the poke if you want to be on Zoom or the classes, the virtual classes and stuff. Hey, let me know if that makes any sense, guys.
Well, let me jump in on this because in Oregon, there was a several kind of data point trajectory that happened not that long ago. So our governor extended the definition of what a healthcare worker meant. That was point one. And psychologists were now magically roped into that all of a sudden. Point two was now, we recommend that you get the poke or else you've got to take testing twice a week. And in Hawaii, and this was happening in other Democratic run states as well, in Hawaii, you had to pay $150 per test twice a week, and that you can only go to one testing center on the entire island. That was just for Oahu. All the other islands had that as well. Okay, so that was point two. Then Brown came out and said, I'm going to be removing the option to be tested, which essentially is another way of saying mandating. And if you don't get the poke, the only way out is either a religious exemption or a medical one. And so that's going to be implemented here in October. So the parent company to where I work is based in Florida. And so she was getting emails from the governor, and that was going to be then implemented down the chain to us. So ironically, most of my clinic is 100% online. So I wrote her back and I said, I'm going to push back a little bit here because I don't have any personal one-on-one interactions with clients at all, full stop. And I said, I'd like you to follow up and ask about what the repercussion is because of that, because I have no interactions. And so she said, okay, I'll follow up and I'll let you know. Meanwhile, I'm thinking I got to think about plan B here. Anyway, so she got back to me today and she said that the governor's office said that if you're 100% online, then you don't need to. But then, of course, she follows up and says, but if you have any personal interactions with them or you work in a hospital or I don't know, she listed all these stipulations, then you do. It's like, yeah, but why are you even saying that? Because I just got through saying I'm 100% online. So just that, full stop,
So but crazy.
At the end of the day, it's a good thing because now I don't have to worry. So that's a big relief. But the point that you even have to have a discussion about that, kind of like what we were saying, like you're going to wear a mask when you're on Zoom, like obviously logic left the building long ago, but good Lord, man.
Yeah, now they want you to have the poke. Even if you're on Zoom or virtual classes, they want you to have the poke.
It's going to come through the Wi-Fi next, just like it's coming through the air conditioning units. The
HVAC, For all we know, it's in the tap water. Wow. Yeah. I think I need to put, do I need to mask my tap too? I mean, I would have to make one. It would look like a teeny weeny diaper size for chipmunks.
Well, I saw a video of a dog wearing a mask the other day.
Oh God.
Oh, no, it's funny. It's kind of funny we're talking about this because I was at Target the other day, earlier today, and because I was going with my family, and we were my dad was picking up some medicine from the pharmacy, and while I was there, we have those surgical masks over there. But I was examining the box, flipping it upside down, inside out, upside down, just reading all the things. And when you look at it, it has this nice label that says cannot be used for medical or clinical or surgical uses. And I'm like, so what are we using it then for? If we're not using it for medical, surgical, or any other. If we're talking about this outbreak, would that be considered medical? Technically, that would be considered medical.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't protect you from political.
Right.
Doesn't protect you from corruption.
Can you put it on your eyes or your ears so we don't have to hear the liberal BS anymore, please?
I'm not even going to call it liberal because we've also seen people who are considered conservative do the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of conservatives and moderates that have been deceived.
It's a lot.
I've actually had to wear just the one of the finger parts of the gloves. Those little, I call them finger
condoms.
Yeah, exactly the word. For using turning pages and things like that. Right. I've been very tempted to just walk around the city with just my middle finger covered with that, But I mean, the tempt is so huge.
I hear too that they're now, if you wear those finger condoms, you're going to be less likely to become infected. So you might want to up on some.
I mean, nobody wants to sterile middle finger,
I know. I heard that the new strain can come in through the middle finger.
Yeah, I know. I've been straining it anyway, holding it up all day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I hear that's also a way to get gangrene. You just know. After a while, your finger just becomes so atrophied that it just kind of falls off.
I guess we can't cry carpal tunnel then.
Hey, I deal with that. That is not fun. Not fun.
Yeah.
I got super tiny fingers, and so I'm
interesting information about carpal tunnel. A lot of people get it that have a forward facing or leaning neck, and a lot of it's from slouching and looking at your phone and being on a computer all day. Dr. Bergman talks about that, and I think it's up to your C3 to 5 or something like that, and it pinches the nerves, and every single time he's like, you get that adjusted and correct your posture and it should go away.
I love Bergman.
Oh, he's amazing.
If you are not familiar with him and you are listening to us right now, it's so worth just going on YouTube, searching his name, buying any book he's written. He's just phenomenal.
Absolutely fabulous. I just love him. Changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's definitely helping on all sorts of areas of health. He's very, very, very good, actually. So do we want to talk about, Alex Spillman, between the governor's demands and the president's demands? He's been making all kinds of demands lately, but all of the left governors and stuff, and the president's.
Yeah. Well, what's kind of interesting is that I think it was back in 2020 or 2019, one of those recently, we had Del Bigtree at Trenton. And if you guys know Del Bigtree, he's a huge vaccine skeptic. He's gone through all the data. He's done all the research. And the reason why he was in Trenton was we had this huge rally down there. I actually wasn't able to go, unfortunately, but it was to protect the religious exemption for schools and for anything. Just protecting religious exemptions.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And people came out of the woodwork because all of a sudden, you have parents that are like, "Oh, we don't want our children to have certain things because we don't feel comfortable," or the doctors would say that the children shouldn't have this for X, Y, Z reasons.
Right.
and they tabled it. Luckily, they never they finally tabled the that bill, and that hasn't come back since, which is wonderful. The reason I'm bringing this up is because the way that the federal government is doing things is a violation of the 10th Amendment. Which, I mean, at this point, which constitutional amendment have they not violated at this point? That's the sad part.
Right.
You know, if it wasn't the First Amendment or the Second Amendment or the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment or the 10th Amendment or Ninth Amendment, I mean, every single one has probably been violated once or twice, depending on how you interpret it.
Yeah.
But that's even going into Texas. I think the Justice Department is currently suing Texas for their abortion laws, which they're allowed to do. They're like, oh, but Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was a judicial decision. It was not a law. It's never been a law. Or never been a law on the books that says that you can't do this stuff. Mm-hmm. And now there is. Now Texas has a law on the books that says you can't have an abortion after 6 weeks.
Right.
That's cool. Really
cool. But they keep doing rounds. They keep doing rounds and trying to, throw them into court again, or trying to make a case out of it again and again and again. I mean,
no, but here's the funny thing. They had people challenging this. I think they went up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
5 justices said no. Texas is completely in the right to make a law at this point. So they basically just threw it out. They're like, Texas is the right. They have state rights right there, which is good.
That's cool because we need to have rights over federal government. So states' rights always.
We definitely need to protect the innocent. I mean, more than anything in the world, all of this has to do with the children. Everything that's going on has to do with the children, because I mean that's the main ticket that the bad guys are doing.
That's our future.
Yeah, exactly. But here, do we even know if the poke is actually going to cause sterile? Do we know what is going to happen? How good is our future? We don't know.
There's already hard research, and myself and my sister and her daughter have actually experienced firsthand the different varying thrombosis, the headaches, the dizziness, the mental fog, almost like amnesia or like a dementia type thing, just forgetting even what you're doing, nausea, the scratchy throat, cramping. And I've had a hysterectomy, but I've bled down there. I mean, what the crap? Being around people that have been poked and having to take certain protocols that I've talked about. But these physicians are talking about it and taking the protocols, which I know there's a specific thing that people are talking about, a dewormer online, that everyone's saying, don't take. Well, my dad is the doctor of osteopathy, a DO. And the research that he's done, and he uses this on himself and with his patients, it's the ZINK that you take that kills the virus. And the delivery system is some of the things that we've talked about. The thing that starts with the I, mech, you know what I'm talking about, that one, as well as the sur, MIN, and other things like that. That is the delivery into the cell to deliver. So basically, prophylactically, when you're taking any of these, there's like 4 or 5 different items you can take with the ZINK that delivers to the cell, boosts the immune, and it's amazing. It really works. I have not had the headaches like I was doing. The bruising has stopped, the dizziness, the confusion. I'm around people that I work with quite often, actually, that have been poked. And I'm doing fine. My sister's doing fine. And so, I think the fear has gone both ways. When we step back and actually do a little research and, get into the heart and that, like what Alex Bloom has talked about several times on here about staying calm, being centered, finding that peace so that we can actually make, educated decisions rather than rash and hasty reactions and being afraid and raising our cortisol levels and our adrenaline levels and down regulating our thyroids, being stressed out. And, that does affect the body. And so anyway, the really, really cool things out there, really cool physicians that are talking.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of therapeutic soaks that you can do as well. The borax, you can do the alfalfa hay soak along with it, the Epsom salt along with all of that. And you can also, baking soda, you can use all of those items together, including a bit of pink salt along with it. And there's a way to also detox, especially when you get reactions from any of the poke. There's also that yellow weed that grows in everybody's front and backyard. The root of that, if you make a tea with it, you can also drink that, and along with the ZINK, that
Such a
will
dandy
also
little
help.
flower.
Yes, we love those things. Although I think they're hard to eat when they're kind of white and puffy, though. But that's just my opinion. They kind of get into it's like chewing on a pillow. That's what happens when you
a
dream
down
about
pillow.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the problems that I have sometimes in my sleep. One time I dreamed I was eating a marshmallow and I woke up with some of that in my mouth. So, you never know. But still, you can actually use some of that root of that plant, though, in your bath as well. So, I actually can make it as a tea, the way you brew it. And then you pour that into your tub and you soak in that as well as drink some of it while. So it's like going in both directions, drawing out and well as putting in. So
basically detoxifying the blood, which is really cool.
Yeah. So it works really, really well for that. It's just that there's just so many things that they're withholding from the internet world, and even you can do some research, it's going to take some digging, but this is why they wanted to keep all of these therapeutics quiet, so they can say that we're still in a state of an emergency. We're still so they can have the emergency poke and that, to pass it out. And so if there was therapeutics available, then it wouldn't be an emergency. The emergency can only be brought out if there's no other way. There's no way to take care of any kind of sickness that is being passed around out there. Then they can administer something for the poke, but it has to be done in an emergency level, and only if there's no other way. But but there are other ways, and they've been shutting people up. They've actually even gone as far as killing a couple of people that are anti-poke for speaking about it. And even though they said that they have died from the sickness, but we know that some of them have been killed. So it's just when you look at the agenda, like when they talk about how they inflate the numbers by counting people that have passed away from construction site fall, they pass away from motorcycle accidents, they pass away from heart attacks, they passed away from all kinds of other ways of dying besides from the sickness, and they will count it as dying from the sickness just to inflate the numbers, to scare the heck out of everybody.
Well,
you might want to ask that.
I wanted to quickly go back to Amaria's point before, if you don't mind, and talk about that wonderful IBER stuff she was talking about. And they were talking about this all being this dewormer. And I mean, there are some very important things about this. First of all, the doctor who discovered this stuff got a Nobel Prize for medicine in medicine, and I think psychiatry in 2015. Second of all, it has been used for multiple different things, not just for this one thing. It's for like river blindness. We've had it for malaria. We've had it
African sleeping sickness.
It's had a whole bunch of things. And thirdly, and I think this is the most important, and I find it to be the biggest slap back to the deep state, is that this and HCQ are both under the World Health Organization's most essential medicines, and they've both been there for over 50 years.
Yep.
They're considered essential medicines. So so is this thing not safe? Or is it actually safe? Because if you're saying this is an essential medicine, meaning that this is so safe and so proven to be effective that it can be used in almost any situation that it is required.
Remember what they were saying when Trump took it? You know, they were saying, "Oh, it's so dangerous," and da 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 da. You know.
Yeah,
he's still here.
You know, it saved my life. It saved a friend's life who they snuck it into the hospital. He was dying from the, you know what, and they snuck it in and they gave it to him. And guess what? His pneumonia started healing. They got him off the ventilator. It took him a few weeks because he was pretty wiped out, but you know, it saved his life. So somebody's hiding something, and it's not
I
for the
think
good.
all of us is taking it. So
Oh,
and
I
we're
take it
still
weekly.
here. Yeah. So I mean,
In fact, tonight's my night.
It's just that anytime they want any kind of agenda achieved, they will say stuff like, there is tons and tons of articles right now about how people are ending up in the ER by overdosing this stuff.
Medicine. Are you talking about the story?
And
you're talking about the story in Oklahoma?
Yeah, and how people have to, the people who shot wounds has to be, put on hold.
That was actually completely debunked, I think, next day or the day after that. Because first of all, they found that the doctor who was making these claims was not in this particular hospital for over 2 months. And on top of this, the people that was disproving it was actually the hospital system itself saying, no, this is not true.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing. If you're gonna lie about it, you're gonna get caught. And but they're putting these agenda out. It's the same thing with every time they have an agenda that they want something accomplished, they'll put forth all kinds of stories about it and they'll pump it out. And if you find the stories written 20 different times, by 20 different people, the exact same story, you might want to question whether there's an agenda behind it. I believe it is in Australia. Like one of them, they were talking about how somebody got stabbed. So now they want to take knives and scissors off the store shelves. And I'm just going, was it?
It's called knife control, and they do it. They
Mexico
actually
too. I heard it was Australia. Okay.
No, okay. So knife control is actually a thing, and it currently exists in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
So they have this thing. In the United Kingdom, when they started dealing with the migrants, when they were with the Middle East, they were starting to bring a lot of them over during the Syrian civil war. They started bringing them into Europe, Sweden, Germany, France, England, and what happened was that since these places are disarmed, there's no firearms. There was a massive rush of stabbings. The people just, so in order to counter the countering stabbings, they said, well, we're going to regulate knives. So that means cooking knives, that means combat knives, that means hunting knives.
Wow.
Everything's regulated. I was like, oh, what are you going to do? Knife control? And the government's like, well, now that you mention it, sure, let's do that.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for pitchforks and rakes to be recalled.
It's an assault knife.
It's just
that's another thing. Why did we call everything that we talk about an assault rifle, but that's not even the proper classification of a firearm?
Right.
Well, I got sarcastic in one of my articles on Twitter, and I actually said, I talked on Twitter, I said, they're recalling these, and I figured there was, an agenda to, get rid of these, because I thought, they've already just trying to disarm these people from guns. So why not disarm from knives and anything else? Because they're coming after you for whatever they want to you. And I said, what are you going to do if someone gets punched to death with a fist? Good luck taking the fist away,
They're literally going to disarm you, literally, like physically.
Literally, exactly.
It's only a flesh
Exactly my
wound.
point. You finally got my joke. You got my joke. Exactly.
You lost your forearm privileges. We're going to literally pull their arms off the socket.
See, that's what they said to Kali. I mean, they lose 4 arms, literally 4 arms. Okay, I'll move on.
Well, if you're trained in martial arts and you kill somebody or injure somebody, that's considered a deadly weapon. Do you know that?
It is. You have to register it as a weapon. That is 100% true. You have to do that. You have to register.
Wow.
I'll register my middle finger. Anyway, it's just this has all gotten just so ridiculous. I'm just wondering how it just feels like the screws are getting tighter. The news is getting tighter. And I'm asking everyone to literally rise up. They can't arrest you all. They can't even kill you all. They need you. They need you for the votes, definitely. It's just.
It's funny.
We got to.
The way that the way the mandates are supposedly written, it exempts the post office, all right, but it also exempts illegal immigrants. So we're only dealing with U.S. citizens. And why did they exempt the post office? Well, they want to do mail-in ballots. And why do they not exempt illegal immigrants? Well, that's because that's going to be their new voting source.
Yeah, that's right. And where are they sending all the Afghanis that are coming in?
Well, right now they're at Fort McGuire Dix House, which is here in New Jersey. A lot of them have come into this area. They're currently living on base, and we actually have them currently planning for relocation in multiple different counties in this state. And they're doing these drives now. We need food, we need formula and diapers and strollers and clothing, religious requirements of clothing. We just can't have them regular shirt or pants. You have to have religiously proper clothing. Like, for instance, they were saying you need people like with hijabs and burqas and stuff like that. And this, and at the end of the day, what this is all about is blending the populations.
Exactly.
So, because what they're doing here is no different than what they've done in places like Michigan or Minnesota or Illinois, or even, I would assume, even places like Oregon too, where they've just completely started blending stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was
is a big one. They're wanting to do it in Texas now in certain counties.
Mm-hmm. I remember watching a video, and it was right after they started doing a lot of the refugees from Somalia into parts of Minnesota. And you go into the Mall of America, and it didn't feel like you were in the United States, just because of how many people were in their religiously significant clothing. So that was kind of, it's like, when you think when you think the Midwest, you think German or Nordic, maybe Lutheran, because those are the populations that were very prevalent in those areas for the longest time.
Well, they know they're trying to get the votes in, especially if the votes in been founded for cheating. They're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is by numbers.
Oh yeah,
the people.
That's why, like, places like Chicago, they actually have their IDs, and you're actually allowed to vote with an ID. Now, anybody can get these IDs. It's not just a state ID. Anybody can get these things, and they're used for like mass transit, but you can use them for the polls.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get past them that they're trying to use these passports as a form of ID.
Wouldn't surprise me. I've actually seen people with it tattooed on them now in person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So step back and take a look at some of the patterns of the things that are going on in your city and your hometown. Take a step back and actually take a look, because all of this right here is just stuff that they're doing for agenda. They have things behind the reason why they want to do these things. They want to do everything they possibly can to stay in power. The old guard and the old system is dying. And when you're dealing with a wounded animal, what does a wounded animal do? Alex? Right? Dr. Bloom, what does a wounded animal do when...
Well, yeah, they're going to get, when they get backed into a corner, there's a lot of different potential of what they can do. Essentially, they're going to get defensive and fight for survival, right? So they're unpredictable, I guess is the best word to describe it. So, but it becomes more apparent, and this is where it's a double-edged sword, because there's so much that's going on that's scary and unsettling, to say the least, for those of us who are awake to see this. But I can assure you that especially the big turning point was Biden with Afghanistan, and then the media not supporting him. That since that point, I can't tell you the number of sleepers in my personal life who for the first time is now finally starting to listen to me, because it was like the wall finally had a crack in it, because the media now didn't support a Democratic president. And they're like, okay, now I guess I'm given the green light to start to question things here. You know,
good.
So it's just going to continue. It sucks because it's so, intense for all of us. But another thing to keep in mind is that the president was given more power because we're in this emergency situation, okay? But a president of the United States is not allowed to mandate medical things like the jab, okay? So if that's happening, and yet states' governors are going to mandate it, that is beyond illegal, because states' rights trump federal rights. So that's an important aspect to keep in mind. That's why all these lawsuits are being filed everywhere.
Yep.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of lawsuits right now being filed against the federal government when it comes to these this federal mandate, because of the way that they're doing it. They're not doing it from the federal government down to the businesses. They're trying to go through OSHA. Now, OSHA doesn't even have the authority to do these things. They are an independent agency within the government. They're not beholden to the president or the executive branch.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So when they actually are doing these sort of things, it is waking people up. Some people are still going to be asleep, but we are just going to simply have to walk through this crummy darkness, and light is coming.
It's
just gonna take a while.
I'm excited,
Yeah.
Just keep raising those vibrations, keep working on, we each gotta keep working on ourselves and just really mastering, especially when we've got those low times, bring it back up, becoming centered.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you can do. Dr. Bloom, could you list some of the positive things that people can do mentally? I think one of them is definitely sense of humor, comedy and things like that, and watching funny movies and whatnot, and also listening to your favorite music that can get your blood pumping and going and have fun. What else do you suggest that people can do to raise their vibration?
Well, this is my forte. So let's take a step back before we jump into this. Okay. The biggest thing is, how do we know what our vibration is? Well, let's take a step back. Why does it matter what our vibration is?
Good question.
Yeah.
It matters because if we believe in the spiritual truism that what our vibration is being put out into the energetic field is going to boomerang and mirror back to us. So this becomes the most important aspect for us as we go through life, is what is our current vibration? Because we know what it is that we are sending out with that signal is going to eventually echo back. So that's the rationale. So the second question is then, how do we know what our vibration is? And a simple answer to that is that we have a guidance system that's wired into us as humans called emotions. Emotion is energy in motion. And so it's the energetic signature that's being resonated within our own bodies that's letting us know where our vibe is. So when we're feeling a positive emotion, such as peace, love, joy, happiness, connection, etc., that is letting us know that we are on the positive end of this vibrational scale or spectrum. And if we're feeling a negative emotion, such as anger, sadness, grief, anxiety, the list goes on, right? that then we're dampening our vibe. We're feeling heavy. This is why people say, whoa, you're in high vibe, meaning they're light-hearted, right? That they're higher up on this continuum in terms of the vibrational spectrum. So that's point 2. Point 3 then is the most important piece for us to keep in mind is how do we stay in a higher vibration? And this is where a lot of people miss it, and why I'm anxious to kind of finish my book, because people say, oh, well, I should avoid feeling negative emotions. And that is not suggestible, because the problem is if you ignore it, it's still there. You're just pushing the beach ball underneath the water. So the only way out is through. You can feel your negative emotions, just don't stay stuck in them. See them for what they are, which is feedback, information to let you know, oh, this is good context of where I am. Now, where do I want to be? How can I pivot from here? How can I learn and grow and transform and alchemize this emotion to move forward? So the last thing I'd say is, like, a simple starting point is to just Google list of pleasurable activities. And when you search for that in a search engine, there's going to be a whole slew of different hits that come up. And I just found one the other day, and it's called the Pandemic Edition. Let me find it here so I can get the website name. So this is by Dr. Golino. So DRGOLLINO, and it's .ca. And if you just type into Google Pleasant Activities List Pandemic Edition, there's something like, it looks like it's close to 200 ideas in terms of just different things that you can do for fun.
Really cool.
And it's easy in this heavy world that we're living in right now to overlook the simplicity of life. This is, I think, one of the many blessings from the C19 in disguise, is that this is jubilee in some ways. You know, it's an opportunity for us to exit the rat race and get back to what really matters. You know, what's our value system? I can't tell you the number of clients who've come to me and I said, wow, because of all this lockdown and whatnot, I realized I was traveling way too much for work, and I'm not going to do that anymore when this ends. That my family's too precious. My kids are growing up before my eyes. And it didn't take me long to realize, wow, I have totally warped in terms of what really matters. And thank God I saw this now and not on my deathbed, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's a last question that I actually have for you, Doctor. We noticed that they have been wanting to cut off people from, the unemployment, the stimulus, and get people off their butts and go back to work. A lot of people are screaming and crying about it. They actually like sitting on their ass and eating potato chips, I guess. So what do you think in terms of that? Is why there's this huge resistance? They've just gotten used to sitting on their butts. Why isn't people going back to work? Because now they're talking about the problem that there are tons of jobs out there, and there's even places that are begging for employees, but people just don't want to bite. Is it the amount of money that they say this job isn't paying, or they just simply got used to sitting on their bums no matter what?
Well, I think it's a complicated answer because it's multifaceted in terms of this. So yeah, part of it is, look, I can go work my tail off for a minimum wage job at a restaurant, or I can just sit behind and get unemployment and make a heck of a lot more money. Well, which one do you think people are? This is why communism doesn't work, by the way, because it goes against human nature, right? So there's kind of one piece. Another piece is that, just like I was saying earlier about like truisms here, another truism with our energy is that energy has different qualities to it. Okay, so one of those is what we put back, what we put out, we get back. Another truism is that energy, almost like Newton's laws of thermodynamics, that once an object is in motion, it tends to stay in motion. So energy has momentum to it. So for example, if you're seeing one who's depressed, meaning push in or push down, that there's been a spiral that's happened. You don't get depressed overnight, right? That when that happens, that this momentum starts working against you and your functioning level starts going down, down, down. Now, what's nice about this, and this is the gold standard of how to treat depression, is that momentum can also be reversed, and you can go up, up, up. But there's my metaphor here is I think about like if you're stirring a liquid, let's say chocolate milk, okay? And you put the chocolate in and you take your spoon and you swirl it in a certain direction, you start to see that vortex that's formed in the liquid, right? Now, if you were to pause and have the spoon start swirling in the other direction, before that momentum is built to have that spiral going, there's going to be chaos in the liquid as you make that transition. So that's often what happens when you're dealing with someone, for example, with depression, and you say, let's get out and let's start working on different types of behaviors because it's a kickstart to getting out of this rut energetically. And so that's the parallel here, that at least for a good number of folks, they've gotten so used to not working, to getting free money, sucking the teat of government, that they can sit home and play their PlayStations and order their pizza and do all those sorts of things, and they don't have to work, and it's all good, you know? So having them now being forced to go back to work, that's uncomfortable. That's getting me out of, you know, the love of wearing PJs all day, right? Yeah. So those are just kind of two answers. And there's a heck of a lot more in terms of what's getting in the way. You know, another one would be childcare, right? It's so expensive for daycare. And so if you can have someone work at home, I've had a number of clients who, you know, one of the folks is just like, you know, I'm just going to stay at home because it's cheaper for me to work remotely and have free daycare than it is paying a third of my paycheck to this service, right? And then, of course, there's other pieces too. There's the fact of, you know, having to wake up in the morning and get dressed and facing a commute and everything versus taking a 10-second walk to another room and flipping on your computer, you know?
Right.
Right. So that's something you think about.
A lot of people who are not as awake and are really worried about getting the Rona. And so, you know, they don't want to expose themselves unnecessarily. I mean, for example, like if I were to go back and work, first of all, I'd have to get the poke, of course. But if I were to do that, okay, and I were in an office space where there's less than, I think it's 10 feet from my client, then we both have to wear masks. And I'm sorry, I will never do that with
not doing that.
A psychotherapy client. There's so much information that you miss because half your face is taken up, you know?
Right.
And this is what we talked about, I think last time or the time before, of like the repercussions for children because of all of this. We don't know, but we do know that it's not good because children learn so much through facial expressions from authority figures like teachers and parents and, you know, all of that. And they're not learning these important life skills on a daily basis when they're having to be all masked up.
Right.
And then on top of that, you've got other pressures, right? Of like, well, in your school supply, you better make sure you have your Purell. You better not go anywhere without it. Remember the old MasterCard commercial, don't leave home without it, right? Like that now for hand sanitizer. So what sort of message is that conveying, right? You're going to have a whole generation of germaphobes and having zero idea of the importance of an immune system and how to build it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point because it was kind of interesting about 2 months ago when they were releasing the face diaper and people weren't wearing it as much. I went to grocery shopping. There was just only a sporadic amount of people wearing it. That time window that you have talked about before, Doctor, that little nice quiet time window, and people were just really weren't wearing it anymore. I thought, oh, thank God, you know. And then after that, now they're all back to, I went to the grocery shopping today and they're all back to wearing it. Like full blown, like if when the whole thing started. I'm just going, good
notice
grief.
How quick, right? Like overnight, I don't have to wear it anymore. I'm feeling good. And then what's time stamp number 2? Overnight, going to go back to it.
Again.
You know?
Yeah. So, thank you.
Well, guys, this has been a really awesome discussion. I think that there's a lot of points we could definitely talk about in future shows. And good to see you guys again. I've got my family calling. You see the lights going on. So But such a good talk again, guys. Thank you so much to all of our listeners for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Right, thank you.
Bye.